A warm welcome to all of you to the Economic Times Global Sustainability Alliance ESG and NetZero Summit 2022 in its second edition. Right here today on this side of the stage, we will be witnessing some very important discussions featuring our thought leaders and as well as some of the leaders who are also coming together in shaping the economy with their actions, one idea at a time. So ladies and gentlemen, with that, let's gear up for the very first session coming your way, because this is to do with the opening dialogue wherein we'll get to hear from the leaders themselves when we look at the fundamentals to ESG and net zero.
Rajat, could you share takeaways on themes that would be critical to India's net zero transition and the tailwinds that could get us there?
Unlike the West, where a lot of decarbonization work has been done, where growth is still low, where the topic is that of decarbonization, the topic has got to be different in India. It's about building India decarbonized. It's not decarbonizing what exists. To the question of tailwinds, India has done a bunch of things right. So the solar mission, which got set up and that got transformed into what we are seeing as the renewable revolution, with India being the third largest installed base in the world of renewables, and the expansion on that we expect to see with the commitments that we've made in COP26 and more recently in our nationally determined contributions are certainly tailwinds.
Nadir, what is the imperative for CEOs to make ESG a priority? Is there a cost? How are you, as the Godrej Group, approaching sustainability? What can we learn from you?
ESG is not just a cost. It shouldn't be seen as profits lost. And here I think that we all ought to pay careful heed to Michael Porter. With shared value, there's no cost. For doing good, as nothing's lost. All it takes is a thinking brain to remove a societal pain and combine it with a business gain to create a sustainable chain of endless mutual benefit.
Time for the boardroom discussion around ESG, the value creator for India Inc.
Deepak, if you can talk about how you are building your ESG agenda.
There is an enduring commitment at the group level to work with purpose. And this is also crafted into something which is called Mahindra Rise, which is a philosophy which was set rolling in 2011. The RISE philosophy is actually embraced by all businesses across the entire group, all levels. It has three facets: rise to an equal world, rise to be future ready, rise to bring value. Rise to an equal world has three elements: climate change, inclusivity, and ethics. And if you see, this is actually what is intrinsic to ESG.
I represent Bayer, and Bayer is one of the world's leading life sciences company. And one of the first industrial companies in the world to come up with pure, measurable sustainability targets, which is linked to the top management's remuneration, which means that it is not just talking it out, but also building it in the business strategy.
Ladies and gentlemen, with that, we're about to deep dive into our next session right away. In fact, this is the spotlight address wherein we try to find out a pathway to the global net zero vision. Now, joining us this morning, we have the august presence of Ambassador T.S. Tirumurthy, former permanent representative of India, United Nations.
With our own pledge of net zero by 2070, it's only right that we look at setting up and developing our domestic carbon market. Simultaneously, we need to also look into its linkages with the international carbon credit market. The good news is that much of India is being built, and we have a great opportunity to build India in a decarbonized way. India stands as a beacon of hope in renewables, not just for embracing renewables and adopting robust pledges, but also in driving down the pricing to make it affordable for most developing countries. Friends, this is the time for implementation of the Paris pledges. This is the time for developed countries to enhance their pledges and not backtrack. Thank you.
Now it's time to bring your focus to the government's perspective on creating a pro-planet community.
Can I request Mr. Ashish Kumar Singh? You go first, please. In terms of India's commitment at the COP26, which our Honorable Prime Minister announced that we need to reach net zero by 2070, the lowest hanging fruit in that seems to be transport as of today.
Mr. Ashish Kundra, over to you.
Now, just to give an order of magnitude, for Delhi, which is a population of about 20 million, we have 13 million registered vehicles, which is the largest number of registered vehicles in any city in India. So the challenge, the way I look at it, is as follows. Number one, how do we get people who are using personal transportation to use public transport? And second, as was mentioned, the kind of fuel which is being used for personal mobility from conventional fuel vehicles to electric mobility. And that is what we have been trying to do over the last couple of years.
With that, we're about to move forward to the Green Tech Trilogue, and this is where we will be understanding more about the advancements in green technology in order to enable energy transformation.
Srivastava ji, what are the major, if I may ask, if there are any challenges and opportunities in the renewable energy sector in India?
I would say that we just need to structure better projects to make things possible. For example, one project that we have set up in Madhya Pradesh supplies power to Delhi Metro. They save 100 crore per annum. So one of the biggest constraints in the renewable energy sector in the country is that there are no credible buyers. The reason is that we have limited our gaze only to the distribution companies.
We want to learn more about the journey of Continental Tires. What is it that enthused the company to look at having your products go circular?
When I say Continental Tires, Continental, we have three verticals. One is tire, one is the Contitech, and one is our automotives. So all together at the group level, we have a vision for creating value for better tomorrow. And with this vision, what we understand and how we look across the sustainability is that we need to enhance value of our products while reducing the material and energy intensity.
In terms of the ESG goal, it has to be driven from the top in terms of setting up the vision and the mission for the company. The first thing is about that there are some business which are not going to make some profit. This may be the first mover disadvantage the group can have, but then yes, overall we have to see the life cycle. We have to evaluate the things on the life cycle basis, wherein we may have to give a school fee for initial 2-3 years, but then in the long term it will create a longer legacy for the environmental and for the entire ecosystem as a whole. So in our company we have exactly done that. In year 2008-9 we conceptualized world's only coal gasification based plant in Angul, and it is running successfully. So the overall carbon intensity from this plant is close to 1.8 tons of CO2 per ton of crude steel versus 2.5 tons of CO2 per ton of crude steel on the across the steel industries in India, and against 1.8 tons of CO2 per ton of crude steel across the globe. So I think a lot of things we are doing. We are world's one of the biggest carbon utilizing. We are doing the carbon capturing of close to 2,500 tons per day, and wherein we are now exploring the ways how we can utilize this CO2 because it is already captured. We have taken a call at a strategic level that the steel capacity addition which we are going to add in future, 70% of that capacity addition is going to come via green hydrogen ready DRI plants. So 70% of that, which is close to 7 to 8 million tons in next 7 to 8 years, it is going to come via green hydrogen ready DRI plants. So these are the initiatives which wherein we strongly believe can disrupt the entire iron and steel industry as a whole, and in our company we are focusing more on carbon circularity than on the carbon capture utilization or the green hydrogen, because we believe that this can play a great role from this journey from grey to green.
This is a big part of what IBM itself is transforming to. We realize that we can have a big impact on our clients' sustainability journey. So we are helping our clients in multiple ways. First, by helping them measure and comply to various regulations. Second, we are helping them decarbonize and optimize their processes, their supply chains and their assets And finally, we are helping them rethink their business models and prepare for the net zero world.
I think there are 4 key ways in which clients use IBM, particularly in the area of sustainability. Whenever they want to drive transparency and accountability, which is a big area of concern in ESG, they think of IBM, because IBM has powered about 170 clients with some of the best reporting technologies, which adhere to about 10 different global standards, because there are lots of emerging standards in ESG all the time. So that's another big area of focus for IBM. I think the second area people think about IBM is they come to us for our design thinking and IBM garage principles, where we think of solutions ground up. See, the ESG framework is very, very nebulous even at this stage. So customers are looking for collaborating, coming up with joint solutions, applying fresh design thinking to our existing problems. A third area where IBM plays a lot is in data and AI. I think we are a company that is known for our AI-based solutions. And finally, I think companies like us who've been spending 50 years on this topic of sustainability, we are great at building ecosystems. So if you're looking to build partnerships, whether it's the Alliance of Plastic Waste that we were involved with, where we work with all the ecosystem partners, we track plastic around 70 metrics and we help get that back into the system. Those are things that customers love to think about IBM for, and it's a pleasure to work in this topic that's critical to all of us and to this planet.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're now about to begin with the power panel, ladies and gentlemen, and this is where we're going to talk about the decarbonization of India's energy sector and the policy in order to achieve clean energy targets.
Mr. Murthy, as an oil company, how do you think about decarb?
We are the third largest carbon dioxide emitting country in the world, behind US and China. We have a very large energy demand. We are still growing as we move towards becoming a developed country. So the oil demand is going to go from 210 to 300 by 2030. And this demand is to be met in the next 10 years. Under all these circumstances, how do we meet the decarbonization strategy? And how, as HPCL, as an oil company, we can do this? Scope 1, Scope 2 emissions is what we have limited ourselves to, because these are our processes and what energy we use and in the entire supply chain.
Derek, what's your take on how companies are actually going about it?
Not saying that nothing much is happening, but we can see these incremental, let's say, steps leading to net zero decarbonization without losing track of their own profitability and cost issues.
We're now about to get up for the CEO's panel, and this is where we'll focus on the ESG's dramatic emergence into the corporate agenda. The big question being, will India rise as an economic powerhouse with sustainability?
Sustainability was not just the responsibility of the chief sustainability officer in these transformative organizations. It was a collective responsibility of the C-suite. Is that the same in your enterprise? Mr. Soni?
Yeah, rightly said. Sustainability is about culture, mindset, knowledge, behavioral change. Every aspect of the organization needs to depict it. For us, what we'd like to believe is either be sustainable or you can perish.
Mr. Chopra, do you think you are ready for this transition?
From Thermo Fisher's perspective, we have been very focused on ESG and the net zero goals, right? We set ourselves a goal on a baseline of 2018 to reduce our carbon footprint by 30%. We have revised it now to 50% by 2030 and become totally net zero by 2050.
With that, we're going to be in a very interesting conversation around collective action for net zero and ESG to further the goals of sustainability. What does sustainability really mean to you?
I think that's the only way that we can reach our goal. We often talk about what we want to achieve, but the thing is, how do we achieve that is really important. What are the means we are going to deploy? So I think that sustainable living is really a way of life. and basically to me, it just means to consume less, individually and collectively.
With that, we're about to now move on to our next session on the ESG trendsetters.
I would start with you, D'Angelo, as what is the key takeaway for us?
People want to collaborate and make the world greener. We as a business organizations need to provide enablers and sustainable models for them to actively participate and take pride in that participation.
Susan.
It's on the same lines that even if it's not a demand today, it's just the right thing to do. And it will be a demand tomorrow, if not today, by policymakers, by consumers, by NGOs. So it's the right thing to do, and we don't have too much time. We all need to be part of this.
Mr. Ramesh.
No, I think if I wear my CFO hat, the challenge now is, earlier you could reject a business which is seemingly very noble, but it doesn't make money. Now the fact that sustainability is an imperative and there is no choice about it, you now have asked the question in a different manner, that how to make a business which is not looking profitable right now, how to make it profitable and in what period of time. I think the challenge has changed, but the choice has gone away, that whether you can just look the other way and say sustainability is for somebody else and not me.
India's path to net zero requires India to invest about 6.5% of its GDP in the next 3 decades. Some of the actions that are needed to make this happen, for example, is a national plan which then defines a stable policy regime for industry to be able to invest the tens and hundreds of billions of dollars that have to get invested. We need a bunch of other things, a compliance carbon market to be accelerated with some certainty on the price for carbon. We need a circularity mission because that's a huge source of abatement for India. We need financing to show up in the country. We need acceleration of capacities for renewables, for hydrogen and so on.
In terms of India Inc., I must say historically the country is really one of those few countries which is really being very progressive in terms of sustainability. Right now, I think a lot of Indian companies have taken lead position in this. The role of the government and the policymakers have also been quite appreciable, because the BRSR route that the government is looking at, I think this will also bring in a lot of good aspects from the Indian companies. There's a lot we can learn from countries like the European countries and the Western world in terms of sustainability reporting, sustainability targets. Like in Bayer, we have very stringent targets across different businesses. We've defined these targets in terms of reaching 100 million smallholder farmers by 2030, particularly in the low and medium income countries. And that includes a major part of India and South Asian countries contributing to this target. The second one is reaching 100 million people in terms of self-care in, again, low and medium income countries. Reaching 100 million women in underserved communities for family planning and modern contraception. The second part is the culture of the organization, where everybody, every business, every strategy is defined around sustainability. And that's something that Bayer is leading in terms of understanding corporate strategy and intertwining it with the sustainability targets. The third part, I would say, is not just the business part, but also the internal operations and the conversations around sustainability. Recently, we just launched a campaign called Run Blue campaign, where we are taking the lead in terms of water and water conservation across the world. So companies need to stand up for a cause, need to stand up for strong awareness building, strong partnership, collaboration with different governments, the communities, societies, and different private sector companies as well, so that sustainability is in the core of their operation.
ERM is a pure-play sustainability consultancy with a legacy of over 50 years globally and over 25 years in India. In view of our strong credentials on social performance and human rights, one of the conversations that we've been having with companies is on enabling a just transition. That is, how do you get to a net zero and climate resilient economy that leaves no one behind, whether it's workers, communities, or ecosystems? Businesses can enable a just transition by embedding specific social and human rights considerations into their net zero strategies. This implies going beyond conventional risk management and assessing who gets adversely impacted by a transition to a low carbon economy, such as coal asset workers. How are certain low carbon initiatives impacting communities and farmers, for example, renewable energy projects, especially large scale solar power projects? And how are we assessing the impacts on climate change to vulnerable communities?
There's a lot needs to be done in relation to the environment. We have very clear near-term and long-term goals and targets in place. We have done a lot of work in the last 2 years. Particularly, we utilized the opportunity during the lean period in COVID to set up a largest solar park in Mumbai. We have transformed many of our offices to procure green electricity. On the other hand, we've also started working and focused on looking at our equipments to see how we can make it more energy efficient, thereby reducing the emission and making sure that we are cognizant of what we use and how much we emit to the environment. The third biggest component is the car fleet, which ferries our employees. We have transformed, I'm very proud to say we have transformed all our car fleets to electric vehicles. And as we speak, we have nearly 500 charging stations for electric vehicles in our offices. So that way, you're transforming steadily and slowly to support and do the right things for the environment.
Agriculture plays a critical role in meeting the needs of people and our planet. However, every day today, farmers and the entire agriculture industry are facing the impacts of climate change. Greenhouse gas emissions are worsening these impacts of a changing climate. Climate positive agriculture can help us achieve sustainable climate action today, reducing greenhouse gas emissions while nurturing the soil and protecting the water resources that we have. And all of this without sacrificing on our on-farm productivity and the profitability of our farmers. Corteva is committed to delivering innovative solutions, and we are eager to work alongside farmers around the globe to make sequestering carbon more productive and profitable for everyone involved. We are helping catalyze a movement that ushers in a new era of agriculture that supports the net zero goals by 2050. In 2021, we launched a Climate Positive Leaders program. This was meant to recognize farmers who are early adopters of sustainable solutions, who are taking on climate positive agriculture before anybody else. We also, in our operations, are driving every effort to drive towards zero emissions. As an example, our research center in Germany is undergoing an energy efficient expansion with an aim to achieve zero emissions. The climate crisis is pushing even the most resilient crops, such as rice in Asia Pacific, to its limits. Farmers are under tremendous pressure to make the most of what they have, to ensure that their production systems are efficient, environmentally friendly, and effective in optimizing output. We at Corteva Agriscience have partnered with the Water Resources Group, a World Bank initiative, to help 50,000 farmers in Uttar Pradesh to drive and transform their method of rice farming towards direct seeded rice. This method will help them reduce their water usage by 35 to 37%. This will also help them maintain better soil quality for longer. This will also help drive greenhouse emissions down by 20 to 30%. There's several products with beneficial environmental profiles like hybrid seeds, biopesticides, and products that have a much lower footprint that we are looking at introducing into farming. As an agriculture innovator, Corteva is doing its part. Its solutions make the food system more resilient, smart, sustainable, and help secure our global food supply and drive food security. We want to partner with regulators, other innovators across the food chain to be able to make this change happen today and for generations to come.